You are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Bardelli, Ross Galloway here. Ross, we had a little bit of delay during the pre-show. Hopefully you're doing better over there. How you doing, bro?
I think we're back up. I think
Yeah, we're
Biden's
pretty
high
good.
speed.
Listen,
I think his high speed internet finally reached where I live.
oh, you gotta get Starlink, man. I'm telling you, out in the boonies where you are, it's gonna be the only thing that helps. So listen, we got a packed show. Uh, I'm just glad we're back this week after the hell week that I had last week with well, we haven't really talked about it on air. How during the hurricane that broke up and went through the Northeast, I got into a car wreck. Guy hydroplaned right into me. Just crazy. The impact was so big that my glasses flew off my face and ended up on the dashboard. That's how hard it was. Thank God I'm okay from it, but my car is well, it's gone right now, and hopefully can be brought back to life with the insurance company.
Oh man, and there was nothing you could do about it, and that's that.
Absolutely not. Listen, there was nothing the other guy could do about it either. But it was this big red Ford F-150. I didn't even see it coming. I'm looking straight ahead, stopped at a light, and all of a sudden, bam! I just feel this collision pushes the car forward. I do remember that there was a truck with a trailer in front of me carrying 4 porta potties. The only thing that went through my head was, God, I hope they're empty.
Oh, that would
Because
have been awful.
if I would have hit those porta, I was just visions of Back to the Future with the manure truck, and thankfully that didn't happen.
Listen,
But
you're a good guy, but you would have had to sue if that happened.
oh my goodness, I would. Well, yeah. Thankfully, no injuries. Everybody's okay. It's just property damage, and we're gonna go forward with that. And I'll deal with that on my own. Guys, I see people coming into the show. Glad you're here. Let us know where you are in the chat. If you're listening on YouTube or Rumble, smash the thumbs up button. That will help grow the show. That'll give a signal to all the algorithms out there to come and hang out with us as we talk about a bunch of different topics right now. You'll also see on YouTube there's a poll up right now talking about what you think the ramifications are for the first topic that we're going to be talking about. And Ross, we're going to be talking about this seemingly now impending endorsement from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Donald Trump. And the question in the poll right now is, what do you think this impact is going to be? Let's start with the big news from it. We saw earlier in the week that RFK Jr.'s running mate, Nicole Shanahan, sort of let the cat out of the bag that this was coming. And she also let us know that she can't stand the DNC, which is very interesting to hear. But before we get to that, Ross, what are your thoughts on this endorsement? Game changer or no?
Well, before we even get there, I was a little apprehensive about even believing it. You remember a couple of weeks ago, RFK, accepted a phone call from Donald Trump, and it somehow got recorded and somehow got released. And then that supposedly was a mistake. And then I'm curious what your thoughts are on. Do you think she was sincere? Was she authorized to even make that statement this morning? Was it accidental? Is it really letting the cat out of the bag, or was it a private discussion and she wasn't really authorized to say any of this stuff? Like, I would love Friday to happen because I think it is going to be impactful if it does happen. But I'm a little guarded. I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
Well, Nicole Shanahan did this interview with Tom Bilyeu on YouTube. That's how I saw it anyway. A really good interview, about an hour long. I encourage you guys to go check it out. It's actually linked in this morning's video. You can check it out over there. I didn't get a sense that she was lying or holding anything back. In fact, I thought she was being too honest. I got a real sense of political naivete, Ross, from her. Sort of like Baby's first campaign, and there's all this idealized notion. I mean, we were both there back in the day. By the way, full disclosure, everybody, we both ran for office back in the late, I guess we'll call them the late aughts, right? Back in somewhere around 2008, 2009, 2010, in that range. We both got our asses handed to us because we decided to run as Republicans in the People's Republic of New York City. But we were discussing this before the show. We both had this sense of optimism and idealism when we first decided to run for office. I know it was right before my 30th birthday that I decided to actually run, and then I ran when I turned 30. Let's talk about this a second. The political naivete of running for the first time that we see with Nicole Shanahan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, when we ran for office, you want to believe that if you work hard and you meet voters and they figure out what you're for, uh, you know, they can't possibly vote Democrat down the line because you know a lot of those people, right? You interact with them in your neighborhoods, you know the lives they live and what they actually think and believe. So once you think, all right, I'll run for office and I'll get these people to do the right thing and vote for me, but that's naive, right? Because then on election day, when you get blown out 95-5 or 97-3, in Brooklyn as a Republican,
Yeah.
you realize that you grew up thinking that democracy was this thing. Even when the term limit argument comes up, I used to think, well, there are term limits, right? The voters get to decide. but that
Yeah.
doesn't work when you have a bunch of drones or uninformed voters or people that just vote Democrat no matter what. So you're right. I sensed that in her as well. I think that she thought that they had some good ideas and that they can, go down the middle of the road and pull this off, or at least be competitive, or at least be given an opportunity to be competitive. And she got a rude awakening.
She certainly did. I want to go to a clip of Donald Trump right now. We're getting some comments in the show. The JD Club, not a fan of Donald Trump, and that's perfectly okay. We welcome all sorts of people, even the stupid ones. The endorsement of Donald Trump may have been worked out between the camps, but it's not being pushed by Donald Trump. In fact, during this interview that I found on Forbes, Donald Trump had not been asked publicly about his opinion about an RFK Jr. Endorsement or any sort of team up. Let's listen to this real quick.
RFK, because just moments ago, his running mate said that they were considering endorsing you. Have you considered him for a role in the administration, and what role would that be?
Well, we haven't, but I would love that endorsement because I've always liked him.
Would you also consider putting him in the administration?
You're asking me a very unusual question. I haven't been asked that question yet. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. I probably would if something like that would happen. He's a very different kind of a guy, a very smart guy. And yeah, I would be honored by that endorsement, certainly. We got a great endorsement from Elon Musk, which I think meant a lot. And, we're leaving with all of the lies and all of the everything. I watched last night, it was so sad when I looked at the lies talking about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is totally debunked, you know that. But when you talk about all... No. Biden said he ran because of Charlottesville. First,
I love how Trump does this. This is singularly Trump. He's asked a question about RFK Jr.'s endorsement, answers the question, and then goes off on whatever the hell he wants to talk about. It's something that sort of every politician does. Trump does it in the most crude way, but probably in the most real way. Because he does have a lot of things on his mind and he wants to talk about that he's never asked about.
Yeah, and is he going to put him in his administration? That's kind of cart before the horse. Has he endorsed him yet? There's no doubt that phone call that got leaked a couple of weeks ago. Who knows what was really said in the extended version of that tape? I don't think we got to see the whole thing, right? There's a reason why Trump called him, and this might just be the logical, extension of what that call really was about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what the crazy thing is? All these news reports about the conversations that RFK was kind of doing, sort of playing kingmaker. They said he was talking to Trump. We now know that's been confirmed. And they said that the campaign was also talking to Kamala Harris's campaign. And that was debunked by Nicole Sheridan. I'm sorry, I keep making that mistake. Nicole Shanahan, the vice presidential running mate with RFK Jr. For some reason, I have a block on her name, and I had to do so much editing last night in the video that we put out this morning about Nicole Shanahan. I kept calling her Sheridan. It was so buffoonish of me. That's why I'm the chief buffoon here. But the one thing that came out, and we were talking about her a moment ago, is that Shanahan is certainly a political neophyte. This was her first campaign. It was sort of baby's first campaign out. We've all had these moments if you've been in politics. But what rang from her interview, other than the sort of letting the cat out of the bag about this endorsement, is how she just loathes the DNC. She loathes Kamala Harris and everything Democrat. And while all this discussion about, well, we have two options. It's either we stay in the race and risk Kamala Harris winning, or we endorse Donald Trump and hope for the best. That was the big quote that came out of this interview. But this, to me, was even bigger because this sort of got into the inside baseball, the mindset of Nicole Shanahan, who, by the way, is a billionaire, is an attorney. She's a smart cookie. And when I saw this clip, and I want you to comment on this, Ross, as well, let me know whenever you want me to stop. This, to me, really gave me an insight into her way of thinking when it comes to the Democrats.
I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot. The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us.
Back in the day, Ross, we called that black ops. You remember that stuff?
Oh, of course.
There was, for those of you who have never worked on a political campaign, you volunteered, you probably don't see a lot of this, but if you've ever been on the inside of a political campaign on the local level, state level, whatever level you're on, city, municipal, whatever it is, if you're really on the inside of this campaign, you see the dirty underbelly of politics, right, Ross?
Yeah, of course. But then you also think,
oh, you guys see this comment. You guys see the comment. Hang on. We're being admonished. But go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes though, like when you're new too, you're paranoid and you think you have spies in your campaign and stuff. Like, I don't know if either campaign took these people seriously enough to invest time and money and effort into like going undercover to sabotage the RFK Jr. campaign. Like, I don't know if that was a real thing ever, even by the Democrats, to be honest with you, because the Democrats were, focused on lawfare. They were focused on keeping them off the ballot. They were very overt about it. They didn't. I don't think they really had to do much covert, activity.
Well, we don't know. We're not on the inside like her. We don't know. So.
I mean, we don't. But what would Biden have gotten? Like, maybe I don't know, because like the common knowledge now is that anyone who didn't like Biden but would never vote for Trump might have been thinking RFK Jr. But now that Biden's off the ticket, those people are going home to Kamala, right? So, if anything, he hurts Trump more, is what the conventional wisdom I think is now. So, and I think RFK Jr. and Shanahan here sees the writing on the wall that that's probably true, that they're hurting Trump more. I think she even says it at one point during this interview, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, listen, we do have one dissenter in the chat. I do want to discuss this comment here from the JD Club. And by the way, JD, this is all in good fun. You are free to disagree with us. We're happy to engage and have discussions with you. And I wanted to bring up this point that you're bringing up. Oh man, you're wrong. The DNC is doing anything they can to stop Bobby because he's running on, I guess it's meant to be undoing. He says he's having keyboard problems, which is cool. We understand. So we're not going to get on you about grammar or anything like that. We're not those people. Because he's running on undoing government corruption, and the DNC is more corrupt than Trump even. I think we agree with that. Listen, I think at some level, whether you're talking about nationally or if you're talking about it locally, there's varying degrees of corruption and cronyism when it comes to institutional politics. And I can say that from looking at it firsthand in the People's Republic of New York City. At least that's just my opinion of the entire situation. But do you think that's why the DNC is going after RFK Jr. because he's looking to undo corruption? Or do you think that he's simply not towing the party line and not singing in harmony with everybody else, and they just have to get rid of all dissent whatsoever?
Yeah, Gene, I mean, just think about it logically for a second, right? The DNC, they have no policies, right? Kamala Harris still doesn't have a policy page on her website, right? So the DNC has no positions on any. You know what their positions are, right? They're afraid to actually tell us. But publicly, they really don't have any positions. Their own their party platform that they put out on the first day of the DNC mentioned Joe Biden 19 times. Like, they didn't even proofread their own platform. Like, they're not the party of issues and policy. They're the party of power. That's all they care about, the DNC and the Democratic Party as a whole. Mm-hmm. They should just care about power for power's sake. They'll do whatever they have to do to keep it. They'll do whatever they have to do to get it. Chuck Schumer is talking about eliminating the filibuster again if they win, 2 houses of Congress and the presidency, which is why I said a couple of weeks ago, I think we should call his fucking bluff. If we get it, we should eliminate the filibuster and ram our agenda down their fucking throats. But we'll see if outside has the balls to do it. And just one observation I did make was that the JD Club, I believe, is the parent organization to the TDS Club. But that's yet to be seen.
You know what? Listen. I'm not going to call anybody names here because right now we at least on YouTube we got. Well, I don't know how many we have on YouTube, but overall we got like over 25 people watching the show right now. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, if you're on the Twitters, just give us a thumbs up wherever you're at so we can get more people to join in on the conversation here. And as we've shown, we're willing to talk to anybody here. We won't just leave it to favorable points of view that we like or people we agree with. Ross and I love being challenged on this stuff because we have our own experience in all of this, and we want to hear about your experiences in all this, your opinions in all this. This is what it should be like. People with differing point of views coming together to talk about it and have a little fun while we're doing it. But let's get back to Nicole Shanahan here, because to me, like I said, this gives us an insight into her thinking about the DNC.
I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl pledged an allegiance to. And that is not where we are today, and it's not because of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party taking us out. And I am so disappointed I ever helped them. I am so disappointed that I helped Chuck Schumer in that Georgia runoff secure a majority. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life.
One of the biggest mistakes of her life, supporting the Democrats in the Georgia runoff. That's pretty strong. And again, this is someone, her background is she's a lawyer from California. She went to Stanford. She married Sergey Brin, who was one of the founders of Google. They ended up getting a divorce, and she made out like a bandit there. And that's why she has a lot of money to do all the things that she's doing politically and philanthropically that she's doing in California. For her to come out and say that was the biggest mistake in my life, first of all, talking about her idealism here and how that shattered because of this campaign. But Ross, that's pretty strong from someone who's a billionaire. I don't think you ever want to get a billionaire on your bad side. At least I don't.
Yeah, but it's kind of frustrating, Gene, because this person is obviously well educated, right? In the classical sense, I guess. There's lots of money. Running for vice president of the United States, and she's just figuring out that the Democrats are a bunch of snakes, right? Like, to me, she's just figuring out that Chuck Schumer is a piece of trash, right? Like, how is that possible? Notice she's not saying anything about what the Democrats stand for, their issues, right? She's not saying she's against anything that they're pushing. She's just kind of upset about the way they treated her and RFK, which I get, right? But what is the RFK tickets platform? Right, I know we have some people in the chat right now that are bashing Trump and pro RFK.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I can pick one or two issues that I agree with RFK on. I can, right? But overall, he's no friend of the Republican Party. He's anti-Second Amendment. He's got a whole host of problems if you're a Republican voter. So could he have a role in a Trump administration? He absolutely can. Right? The one or two role, one.
You know what role I'd love for him to have in a fiction in my head canon right now. If Trump were to win, you know what role I would give RFK Jr. to be the biggest kick in the ass ever? CIA director.
Well, CIA director's one, or Health and Human Services, or FDA, or CDC. You know what I mean? You could give him a whole bunch. If he truly believes in his core issue, if he truly believes that the childhood vaccination schedule led to the uptick in autisms and other birth defects, then he should join forces with Trump and use Trump as a vehicle to get one of those coveted positions to actually affect change on his main platform plank. Right? This is a test to see if he really believes any of that stuff he's been pushing for the last few decades.
And actually, Ross, that's something that Nicole Shanahan said in this interview that she gave to Tom Bilyeu, saying that Trump has been receptive to that campaign's ideas concerning chronic illness treatment, which I think has really perked up the interest in working with Trump. Trump is a businessman. I know we say this a lot of time, and certainly he's a politician as well, but in his heart, he's a businessman, and he's pragmatic in his business sense, that he works with people that he doesn't disagree with if there is a benefit to Trump. So why wouldn't he team up with RFK Jr. if it gives him any portion of the vote that he needs? I see this win-win for him.
Yeah, and even in a leaked phone call with RFK that night, they were talking about the vaccine schedule and how there's some real concerns there, and he'd like to look into that, right? Because Trump, the people that I know from after I left the People's Republic in New York City, the people that I know that were big Trump supporters that have been giving RFK Jr. a look this cycle, and some of them have even committed to voting for him no matter what. The vaccine was the issue. The way COVID was handled was their one issue, right? They're willing to throw the Second Amendment, Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court, all these other Supreme Court picks. They're willing to throw all these other things to the wayside over that one issue. But if they really believe that and RFK Jr. joins the Trump campaign, then they got to come home, right? Because that's their only issue. Who's supporting RFK Jr. for his other issues? What are his other issues?
Well, let's talk about support right now, and let's crunch a little bit of numbers here. So Real Clear Politics has the battleground states somewhere between 0.2% for Trump to 1% for Harris. There's a little bit of a range there, but it's around a 2.5% swing, maybe even a little more. RFK Jr., when I saw him polling, and people can correct me if I'm wrong here, was polling at around 5% nationally. Now, there's been some shakeups in politics we've seen over the past month. A lot of the support for RFK Jr. were what I like to call double haters. People who couldn't stand Biden and couldn't stand Trump found a home with RFK Jr. Now Kamala Harris comes on the scene and they throw Grandpa under the bus. And we're looking at those double haters no longer doubly hating the two parties. Those that hated Biden but couldn't stomach Trump, they're now going to Harris because there's a big love fest going on, especially at the DNC this week, which we'll talk about later in the show. But ultimately, those people already left RFK's camp, and his numbers started coming down. And I think he's down. He was around like 8% in some polls I saw, somewhere between 5 and 8%. Let's go to 5% as being the line right now. And let's assume that half of that support came from the double haters on the Biden side, and they're now going to Kamala Harris. So he has 2.5%, let's say, as far as what he can deliver to Trump. I think that will also include people who would just stay home and are not voting for anyone because of this development now, with RFK Jr. possibly endorsing Trump, or more likely it happening on Friday. That 2.5% that goes over into Trump's column that will transfer over, if that happens in battleground states, Trump's ahead in every single battleground in about a week or two. That, to me, is why I would vote in the poll right now that we have going on YouTube, that this could be a game changer in that Trump will retake the lead in these battlegrounds, putting Kamala Harris on the back foot. Now, given those numbers, I want to get your thoughts on that.
So the ultimate irony, Gene, will be Donald Trump has not tried to kick RFK Jr. off a single ballot in any state. The Democrats have been. They've been trying real hard to keep him off the ballot. The irony will be this. If RFK Jr. comes out on Friday and endorses Donald Trump, the Democrats will go back to court in various states to ensure that RFK Jr.'s name remains on the ballot in order to draw votes away from Trump. because their only goal is power. It was always a joke when they said democracy is on the ballot. They've rigged their own primary elections, and they've done this for quite some time. In all likelihood, stole the 2020 election. They've been fighting to keep RFK Jr. off the ballot. And I'm telling you, Gene, take this to the bank. If he endorses Trump on Friday, they'll be fighting to keep him on the ballot.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that, because they want voters to be confused when they go and head to the polls in November. They're going to try to keep his name on the ballot for sure. And that's why an endorsement from RFK Jr. can't just be an endorsement. It has to be a full call to action to make sure that people don't get confused by any of the shenanigans and buffoonery that we're going to be talking about as we go through the campaign season. Final thought on this whole situation. I'm going to go look at our poll right now on YouTube. So I'm glancing at my phone. Because we got some people in there in the chat chatting it up, which I love seeing. I got to take my glasses off to see this because I'm blind as a bat, folks. So the question was, what do you think about this RFK Jr. endorsement news? 38% say it's a game changer. 50% say it can be a game changer. And 12% say it's meh, no big deal. Did the crowd get it right?
We shall see. I mean, I agree with you on the margins that 1 or 2% in certain states could make all the difference. If you believe the current polls that, Kamala Harris went overnight from the most unpopular vice president in American history to all of a sudden leading Trump in several battleground states, I don't believe it. I don't think that that's even possible. We'll see in the next couple of weeks if those polls level back out and come back to reality. But we'll see. I mean, 1 or 2% in a state like Pennsylvania could make all the difference, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. But it clearly seems like, to me at least, and we're going to go moving on from this topic, that the honeymoon probably over for Kamala Harris after this convention. I think people are going to start drilling down on policy points. And if she has more gaffes like the unearned income tax credit that I'm calling it, the capital gains tax that they talked about, the unrealized capital gains tax. My brain eventually catches up to me. The unrealized capital gains tax that's being floated out there on the left, that you can be taxed on money that you haven't received. Once stuff like that gets out there, and more word salads come out, and then the debates start happening, and we start seeing these two face-to-face, head-to-head, I think we're going to see some numbers shifting back to Donald Trump's favor. And ultimately, I don't know where we land in November, but it's going to be a hell of a ride, bro.
Yeah. I mean, dude, at some point, she only agreed to one debate, right? At some point, she's going to have to speak extemporaneously. She's going to have to at some point, whether it's an unscripted interview or, on the debate, which might be too late because people would have already started voting in September in some of the early voting states. But at some point, she's going to be exposed. This happened to her the last time. She has no idea. You talked about the unrealized capital gains, right? Just real quick. I know we want to jump somewhere else. But on something like that, if your house goes up in value or you own a stock that went up in value, but you didn't sell it, you'd owe money to the government somehow that you'd have to pay out of your bank account because you have an unrealized capital gain. You didn't sell it, so it's not a realized gain. Do you think Kamala Harris even knows what that means? Honestly, do you think she has any clue what that means? Someone wrote that on a piece of paper and put it in front of her or put it in the teleprompter, and she said it, right? Someone from the Bernie wing of the party put that in her teleprompter, and she said it. She's going to have to answer the question eventually and explain what she means by it. How do you control prices of food at a grocery store? How do you look for price gouging in an industry where their profit margin is like 1 or 2%? If I owned some kind of food chain, I would close it down and just buy a CD with that money. That profit margin is so small. Why would you risk your whole life on such a small profit margin and talk about price gouging? Like, it's complete insanity. She has no clue how the economy works.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be exposed as the days move along towards Election Day. All right, I'm hitting the roulette here. See what banner comes up. I forgot which one is which here. So let's see which one we got. Ah, yes. Job growth. The revisions to the job numbers are way down. Let me see if I can pull up the right window here. Give me 1 second, because like I said, wasn't really prepared for this because I hit the roulette wheel. Let me see if I can get here's the article now. Ross, I'm going to use a source. They have my Brooklyn coming out. I'm going to use a source from the left on this one, I think. And let's go into this article right here from the New York Times. U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs than reported earlier. Take a look at this graph here. This is the change of jobs from a year earlier. So we're looking at the job numbers from April of 2023 up until April of 2024. And it looks like the Department of Labor overreported around 818,000 more jobs than the economy actually grew. So we get into the story here from Ben Castleman over at the New York Times. On Wednesday, the Labor Department said monthly payroll figures overstated job growth by roughly 818,000 in the 12 months that ended in March. That suggests employers added about 174,000 jobs per month during that period, down from the previously reported pace of about 242,000, a downward revision of 28%, almost one-third. The revisions, which are preliminary, are part of an annual process in which monthly estimates based on surveys are reconciled with more accurate but less timely numbers. The updated numbers are the latest sign of vulnerability in the job market, which until recently had appeared rock solid despite months of high interest rates and economists' warnings of an impending recession. Which leads me to ask the question that Donald Trump has been asking, Ross. Is this a scandal?
I don't see how you could look at it any other way, right? Bidenomics was always a joke. No one ever believed it. But they would use government numbers, which, they always accuse the conspiracy theorists of, they don't trust government sources, whether it's about, the COVID or the vaccine or these job numbers or immigration numbers or encounters at the border. We're always very skeptical of the government. The media is not, right? No one in the mainstream media has questioned these numbers. Donald Trump has, right? People like me have, because a lot of it didn't make any sense. It's even worse, though, Gene, because not only are those numbers being revised by more than 750,000 over the past year, when you think about the numbers of jobs that were just recovered due to the numbers of jobs that were actually lost during COVID, then factor in the 20 plus million illegal immigrants that came over. A lot of those jobs that did materialize went to them. The country's in way worse shape than anyone can possibly imagine. I don't know if you saw the Don Lemon thing when he did the Man on the Street in Atlantic City, and he was talking to a guy, and the guy said the economy's a mess, and Don Lemon said, well, the numbers don't bear that out. You're just wrong. He's telling this guy his own personal experience is wrong, and he's using government numbers to back up his claim. Don Lemon was, and the truth is out there now, right? Like you can't make Americans not see what they're seeing with their own eyes, right? No matter how much the government lies to them.
Okay, so Amanda in the chat has a counterpoint to us and says when publicly traded companies release their earnings reports, revisions to reported numbers are fairly common, and I would agree with that. And that's why there's a part of this article that I wanted to get to as well, because yes, this is common, and this year's revision was unusually large over the previous decade.
15 years.
Updates, over the previous decade. Let's just go 10 years. Let's not go crazy.
I'm sorry. I'm saying no correction has been this large for at least 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. But over the previous decade, the annual update has added or subtracted an average of 173,000 jobs. So when you're looking at a revision that is 7 times that, 6 times that, whatever it is, that's pretty significant. Now, there was an abnormally large revision for the year ending 2019 during the Trump administration when it was revised down about 20%. But still, we're talking closer to 30%. I think they said 28% here. Is this a scandal? I want to get Donald Trump's thoughts on this, because as we all know, Trump is hardly at a loss of words.
Before we begin, I want to address the massive scandal around the revised job numbers that were just announced this morning. A little while ago, just before I came up, I got to see them. And it really isn't a revision. It's a total lie. Total lie. There's never been any revision like this. They wanted it to come out after the election, but somehow it got leaked. It got leaked. Government leaks too. The Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin that they've inflicted on America. The new
Now, before I'm going to let him finish, but fraudulently covered up. Do we think that this was intentionally covered up, Ross?
It goes back to the age-old conundrum that we talk about here, Gene. Either some government bureaucrat or appointee covered it up or didn't catch it, right? You can't, it's one or the other, right? The buck never seems to stop with anyone in the government, right? It's always someone else, or this always happens. Okay, well, like, people make decisions, right? The Fed talks about cutting interest rates based on some of this data, and now you're telling us that you're 800,000 off, right? So who's getting fired over this? Is anyone going to get fired? Is anyone going to be put on the sidelines for a while until they can figure out how to count new jobs, right? It never seems to happen. No one's ever held accountable, Gene, and this is why people are fed up. This is why Donald Trump won in 2016, and I think this is why he's going to win again in 2024, to be honest with you.
It certainly could play out this way. This is such a wacky year. I can't make any predictions on it. I will say I am noticing the change in language, and this, of course, is natural. Trump saying the Harris-Biden administration, switching around the titles here because Biden's the lame duck not running, and Harris's name is on the ballot. That's sort of run of the mill for every single campaign. But Trump always goes that extra step further, is talking about it being fraudulent. I can't sign off on that being fraudulent. Like you said, it could be incompetence, and it's incompetence without accountability, so maybe it's gross incompetence by this administration. But I'm not going to go towards that intentionality just yet. But Trump is entitled to his own opinion and can make his own argument.
Listen, Gene, you're damn right. He's entitled to his own opinion. They called him racist, right, over fake stuff. They said that he quid pro quo with Ukraine over a fake phone call. They impeached the man twice. You know what? No, it's fraudulent. Make them prove themselves otherwise. I'm tired of playing nice with these people, Gene. You're too nice. I'm going to go over the top. It's fraudulent. They made up those numbers. They're lying.
I'm too nice. Oh, my goodness. Let's let Trump make his case.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the administration padded the numbers with an extra, listen to this one, 818,000 jobs that don't exist. So they said they existed, and they never did exist. They built them up so that they could say what a wonderful job they're doing. No, we've never had numbers like this. They don't exist. They thought they could do it sometime after, we have an election coming up very quickly, but they wanted this to come out after November 5th when it wouldn't have meant so much, but it came out a little early, so there's a patriot in there someplace, right? The real numbers are much worse than that. And Comrade Kamala, she's Comrade, the most radical left person ever to run for a high political office in our country, gets another 4 years, millions of jobs, and it'll vanish overnight. She gets 4 more years, you're going to see jobs vanish. Millions and millions will vanish, and inflation will completely destroy our country. We'll have inflation worse than they've given us. When I gave it to them, I had virtually no inflation, and now their number's up to 22, 23%, but their real number is probably 40 to 50% because a lot of the things in their numbers aren't included.
And you know what? I'm going to give Trump credit for this. He's right about the inflation numbers as well. When the transition happened, Trump handed off an economy with an inflation rate of 1.9%. Over the course of the administration of Joe Biden, inflation grew month over month to now over 20%, according to the modern calculations of inflation, which changed very recently, by the way. I think it changed during the Obama years. But under the old calculation of that, Trump's right. It probably would have been more like 40 or 50% inflation over that period of time during the Biden administration. He's right on the numbers, and what gets all these people up in an uproar is the hyperbole, which, by the way, every freaking politician does. The fact that they single out Trump on that, to me, is absolutely irritating.
Yeah, and you said under the Biden administration, I will add, it was the Biden-Harris administration. right, that this inflation got out of control. She cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate on numerous bills, including the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which got us to this point. One other point on inflation, at the DNC, they're all touting how inflation is now on its way down, and it's hovering around 3% or whatever it was at the last time they released the number. First of all, those numbers keep getting revised too. But more importantly, what you said, inflation isn't, it was a high of 8% a couple of years ago and now it's down to 3%, so we're in a better place. That just means the rate of inflation has slowed. It doesn't mean that prices are going down, right?
That's
the
right.
Democrats are stuck. Prices went up. They're not going to go back down. They can't go back down unless you have deflation, right? Or higher productivity. There's just no way for prices to go back down. So even if inflation went back down to 1% for the remainder of this administration's term, prices at your supermarket are still going to be through the roof because inflation compounds up over last year. The number they released today, if they say inflation year over year is only 3% now, that's 3% higher than whatever it was last year at this time. And last year at this time it was 8%, right? So it's a disaster.
It's even worse than that. It's month over month when they measure inflation. So it's continually increasing over time. It's the steepness of the curve going up that we're seeing month to month. At the highest point, it was up over 9% from month to month that consumer prices increased. And honestly, you don't need to be a genius to understand inflation here. Just look at the normal things in life, the price of groceries, the price at the pump, things like that. If you're feeling like you have less money to do the things you want to do, that's most likely because of inflation. That's the way that this works. Now, Trump had inflation under control. Granted, there was a pandemic going on, but when that was handed off, inflation went out of control. Yes, there was a global recession around that as well, but certainly the Inflation Reduction Act was not known for reducing inflation. It didn't help out as much as people thought it did. And we can debate till the sun rises whether or not presidents can affect inflation, consumer prices, and all that. And if you really want to get wonky, we can do that on like a membership stream. If you guys want on YouTube, join as a member, and we can do streams like that if you want to do that. But you know what, Ross? We're a little past halftime here, so I got to do my normal thing here. And thank everybody for coming to the show. We got a lot of people watching across different platforms. Wherever you are, be sure to smash that thumbs up button and like and share the show with your friends. All the good stuff that we ask you to do to help the algorithms on wherever you're watching. And you see the scroll in the bottom there. We got a whole bunch of different ways you can interact with us. Smash the thumbs up button. Like and share the show. Get with us in the chat. We are putting up all chat comments that we find interesting right now because we're growing as a show and we want you guys to participate with us. And as always, we got merch you can check out in our YouTube store. Check out my book as well if you want to talk about that. I plug the book all the time, Ross. And believe it or not, it's still selling. It's pretty freaking cool that we're doing all that. So the grift is done. Let's get to. I'm going to spin the wheel on the topics right now. Yeah. Oh, wait, listen, you got to grift on. The one thing I learned in my short time on the YouTubes and the Rumbles and the Twitters, you got to hawk the wares, man. You got to do the grift everywhere you can. So let's see what else we got here to talk about. This is a topic I wanted to talk about. I don't normally cover political conventions when it comes to the shows that we do here. Frankly, and I hope you agree with me on this, Ross, they're a giant infomercial for whatever the party is that's holding the convention. You're not going to get a lot of clarity as to why you should vote for someone. You're going to get the party, the spectacle, the narratives and the stories that are out there. I don't think that conventions give you information. I think that you get the information yourself when you do your own research on these things. But I got to talk about this DNC, Ross. This has been the spectacle of all spectacles for a candidate who never earned a vote during the primary cycle, who has never earned a vote in any primary cycle. And this is an installation, not a nomination of a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about earlier. They don't really have a coherent platform. Kamala has no issues page, right? if you look at some of the weird, they call some of our guys weird. If you look at some of the weirdos that they had speak, I think they opened up with Al Sharpton on day one. Like, the party's in serious trouble there. And a couple of quick notes on it, Gene. So why did they stop saying democracy's on the ballot, right? Like, we talked about RFK earlier where they were like, and rigging their own primary and everything else. This person that got no votes in a primary election is their nominee. They stopped talking about democracy on the ballot. They also blame Donald Trump, a lot like one of these knuckleheads in the chat here, for pretty much everything wrong with the country. When out of the last 16 years, 12 of those years, we've had Democrat presidents, right? 12 out of the last 16 years. 75% for you guys who struggle with math of the last few years have been run by the Democratic Party. But they're running as if hope is now on the ballot, as if the current administration is not Biden-Harris, right? The DNC is all about hope because they have Harris at the top of their ticket. That is the ultimate slap to Joe Biden. And let me finish this here, Gene. He deserves it. Joe Biden deserves it, right? Sometimes I feel bad because he's an old senile man, probably with dementia. I do feel bad sometimes, but he deserves it. He filled his administration. What did he open up with? I'm going to appoint a black female to the Supreme Court. He selected a DEI vice president. He filled his administration with more women than any other administration and people of color. He hired gays, trannies, BIPOC, and every other acronym that I don't even know what most of them mean, right? He took them all. Every misfit you could think of, he stuffed into his administration. And now they put him on Monday night at midnight, well past that old man's bedtime. And now he's, hope is in the air. Michelle Obama comes out. We have hope again. Why? I thought Joe Biden was everything. I thought he was the man. I thought Joe Biden, Gene, got 81 million votes. I thought Joe Biden was the most popular president in American history. Did that not happen?
He was the most convenient candidate in history, and then they threw Grandpa under the bus.
Gene Burrell, do you believe Joe Biden got 81 million votes in the year 2020 of our Lord?
You know what? I think that the way that they were mailing out ballots, it's certainly conceivable, and there may have been some creative counting along the way. I don't know at this point.
Put me on record as an election denier. That motherfucker did not get 81 million votes. All right.
Listen, you can be whatever you want on this channel, but you brought up night one, and night one was supposed to be this honor, this honorable man passing the torch. The torch was ripped out of his hand by Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and others. I want to go to this. I didn't plan to bring this up, but let me pull up this clip from the show we did on Tuesday. An interview on CNN with Nancy Pelosi. I want you to, Ross, I don't know if you caught this, but I want you to listen to this clip, and let's see if we can listen to Nancy Pelosi's spin as to what happened with Joe Biden. And by the way, these two, they're not talking to each other.
I know that it was very difficult for him. That's been made very clear by some of his top aides like Anita Dunn and Ron Klain. And there does seem to be, even though Anita Dunn said earlier today, quote, nobody wants to have a fight with Nancy Pelosi at this time, unquote, it does seem like there's some residual bad blood or resentment. And I'm wondering if you've spoken to him and what your response is to that.
Sometimes you just have to take a punch for the children.
And that's what you're doing right now? You're just going to take the punch for the children?
Who's punching right now?
I don't know.
Anita Dunn said...
I didn't hear this. I'm just hearing...
It was an interview with me.
Maybe he's throwing the punch. I don't know.
No,
I'm not. I would never. But
she
Anita,
said she doesn't want to fight.
Nobody wants to have a fight with Nancy Pelosi at this time.
Well, you know what?
Have you talked to him?
Is my only question. What I have to do.
Right.
He made the decision for the country. My concern was not about the president, it was about his campaign. As he has seen the exuberance, the excitement that has come forth in our country. I just did an event for one of our members in Illinois, Eric Sorensen, today. Immediately, he got 1,100 volunteers into his campaign as soon as that announcement was made.
Nobody is questioning the fact that the Democratic Party seems much better positioned right now than it did 4 weeks and 2 days ago. There's no question about that. Former Speaker Pelosi.
So why are we even talking about it?
They put it on my script and maybe.
Why are we even talking about it? I did what I had to do. Nancy Pelosi is anti-democracy. We here are anti-dumb-mocracy. But Nancy Pelosi actually is against democracy. She took the hatchet to Joe Biden's political career. She did what she had to do, and look at what it created, all this exuberance behind Kamala Harris. The bread and circuses of the DNC that's going on as we speak right now. That's what Nancy Pelosi, brought to everyone. And all I had to do was just get rid of that old man. And you know what? Why are we even talking about it if things are so good?
And
this woman absolutely disgusts me.
I was going back to what I was saying earlier, Gene. What did you get out of that statement other than all she was interested in was power, right? That's all she was interested in. She's known Joe Biden for decades. She's up there in age too. I think she's older than Joe Biden, if I'm not mistaken. Her dentures nearly fell out of her mouth, and I don't know how her bra is holding those things up. But, she's a mess.
Good Lord.
And,
get that image out of my head right now.
Yeah, well, I thought about it, so you have to think about it too now. And then she's used that statement several times throughout the past few years, for the children. What the hell is she talking about?
This I know.
Just as senile.
This I know. Her quote normally is, sometimes you have to take a punch and throw a punch for the children, meaning for the future. In this case, it's probably like AOC or somebody like that. Those are the children to her, the lower ranks in the party here. I love how the chat is talking about let Nancy Pelosi trade and how they're following her stock portfolio. And one said they're even up like 23%, which is really freaking cool to think about. But that's just part of the cringe that we're seeing at the DNC. I know some people are saying that it's refreshing to see sort of the rebrand of it all. I don't like all of the music and celebrity and the pomp and circumstance of all this. It may be cool, but I can't help but think about that single mother out there who's living probably in an urban community, watching all these parties and thinking, man, I'm so happy to be a part of this, but what are you getting out of it? You're still going to be dealing with surviving paycheck to paycheck with the way things are going now. If you keep voting for that, that's how it's going to be going for the next 4 years, probably even worse. You're still going to be stuck in the position that you're in now because Democrat policies work in these urban areas. And I can't help but think of these voters who are eating this all up, loving it, calling it all the buzzwords, all the influences that are there. But they're just signing up for more of the same misery that we're all going through. And no amount of Little John or Eva Longoria or whoever the hell else is out there is going to change that for me.
Well, I hope liberalism is actually hereditary, and that by giving free vasectomies and abortions outside of the DNC, that helps reduce their population somewhat. Because we didn't even talk about that, because that's like cringe level 10, right? Why would you bring that there?
There's a 15-foot inflatable IUD in the rotunda there. This is the future that you listen. If this is the future that you want, then there's no amount of talking that I can do to convince you otherwise. That is just a crazy Delulu vision that I see. But yeah, if they want to just sterilize their own ranks here, I guess the victory comes over time.
And also,
if there's still a country by then, who knows?
Tim Walz is supposed to be speaking tonight at the DNC, and I wonder if he'll give a shout out to the 250 cooks that are on standby in Chicago in case riots break out, otherwise known to the regular Americans as the National Guard that they have on standby there.
And if you don't know what we're talking about here, go check our archives from last week's show where Command Sergeant Major Gallo broke down the controversy concerning Tim Walz's military service, or at least the end of it. But I got to end on some funny stuff here, Ross. And when I think of funny, I think about New York Democrats, especially Democrats in the People's Republic of New York City. Did you happen to catch AOC's speech at the DNC? Because I know you're an avid watcher. I'm sure you caught this.
It was fantastic.
Wasn't it? Well, I just want to play a little snippet of it. This is courtesy of the New York Post. And can we figure out what the hell's going on with AOC's voice here?
I, for one, am tired of hearing about how a two-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day to lift working people out from under the boots of greed, trampling on our way of life.
What the hell was that? Our way of life. What is this nonsense?
She was literally a bartender a few years ago. Now she has the ability to vote to send us to war. Like, she's going to vote to tax your unrealized gains. This is the Democratic Party of today. Utterly unqualified.
And apparently she was auditioning for the part of Norma Ray in that clip. I guess. I don't know. But the voice there, that I don't know if it cracked or whatever. But is there anything real about AOC these days? Is there anything that's authentic and genuine besides the socialism?
Gene, I was going to save this to the end, but let me go on this little rant now since you mentioned that.
All right,
AOC,
go on the rant. Do it.
AOC is fake, right? The Democratic Party is fake. We just talked about the job numbers they released. Fake. They've lost hundreds of thousands, 300,000 migrant children. All of their immigration numbers, fake. The Inflation Reduction Act and every other stupid name that they name the bills before they pass them, fake. COVID numbers, fake. Vaccine numbers, fake. Kamala Harris, fake. The explanation they gave about the Trump assassination, I'm pretty sure that's going to be fake, right? There's nothing you can trust. Not only from the government, by the way. I share some of the frustration that's going on in the chat. I don't trust the government either. I've said numerous times that I think the Republican Party sucks, and that after Donald Trump, the Republican Party probably will be done for, right? Because I don't think I'm going to get as animated for anyone else but a guy like Donald Trump. So I'm waiting to see who that next guy is. But the left, the Democrats, are completely fucking fake. Everything they do is fake and cringy. Unless you want to get a vasectomy at a hot dog truck, like, I don't see any real reason to have the Democratic Party.
That's what it's coming down to. The far left is certainly taking over the party. There's so much going on that I don't even know if an hour-long show can fit it all in. Do you want to keep going? You want to talk about those numbers, or do you want to shut this sucker down? Because we can certainly talk about how an Inspector General report has found that we've lost, apparently, 300,000 migrant children. They're somewhere in the United States right now. We don't know where they are. Do you want to get into that?
Just real quickly, I'd like to just touch on that for a
second.
second.
So let me get... I don't have a banner for this because I came unprepared today. Don't worry, I have a note from my teacher. But let me at least put up this article, because if this typifies to me not only the left mismanaging government, but leftist media sort of burying the lead on the story as well. Let me pull this one up right here. This is from The Hill. GOP seizes on report knocking DHS handling of child migrant cases. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. According to Michael Schnell and Rebecca Beach, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, GOP's pouncing once again on some bad news. Republicans on Tuesday seized on a watchdog report that faulted the Department of Homeland Security for inconsistent communication about immigration cases involving unaccompanied children. Now, this is the Homeland Security Inspector General reporting on bad behavior by the Department of Homeland Security, but it's the Republicans, Ross, that are seizing on this bad news. How nuts is this?
Yeah. And especially when you look at it in the context of Kamala Harris said that the border was secure on numerous occasions. The Democrats refused to participate in the impeachment proceedings against Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, right? This is completely his fault. Again, no one gets held accountable for any of this stuff. President Obama spoke at the DNC last night, and he talked about how evil Donald Trump was for separating families at the border. Now, a couple things there. One, first of all, that practice was in place during Obama's administration, right? So that was conveniently left out, that Obama actually enforced the same practice. Secondly, that's actually the right way to do it. If you got arrested for drunk driving, Gene, and you had your nephew in the car, they're not going to throw the nephew in a jail cell with you, right? They're going to get someone legally allowed to take custody of that child or have to put that child into some kind of foster system and keep track of where the F that kid is, right? But what they're doing now is just catching and releasing. There's no identification for these people at the border. They're with kids. They claim that they're their nephew or their niece, and they just release them into the interior of the country. We have no idea where they are, who they are, and now 300,000 children are missing, right? That's insanity, right?
It's absolute insanity. I just want to give people some context from the story here from the Hill. The report from the Inspector General for DHS stressed that without better communication between immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Health and Human Services, the two agencies responsible for the children, the U.S. can reduce opportunities to verify their safety. Republicans see immigration as a winning issue in November and said the findings showed the Biden administration mismanagement of the border. Of course it does. 300,000 children. Actually, here we go here. In evaluating ICE's role, the watchdog found the agency failed to always notify Health and Human Services when migrant children failed to appeal for their immigration court appearances. So they're basing this off of court appearances, which to me is a pretty bad metric to do. I don't know why there isn't greater supervision of these kids to begin with. Of 450,000 children in Health and Human Services custody, roughly 32,000 failed to appear for court appearances. And those who do not appear are considered at a higher risk for trafficking. So there may be potentially 300,000 children who may be being trafficked as we speak right now. That's crazy.
And who's going to get fired for it, Gene?
No one. No one. Absolutely no one.
If you lost 300, widgets at your job, you'd be fired. Let alone 300,000 children. No one's going to get fired.
It's absolutely nuts. It's going to be a story we're going to be keeping track of as we go forward. But you know what, Ross? We've been talking a lot here. We've been having fun with the chat room, and we appreciate everybody who comes to the chat. We hope you're here next week. We do this every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. As long as the internet is working, we're here. So please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button for this video wherever you are. And it's final thought time, bud. What do you got for me?
I'm almost out of gas. My final thought is I really hope this RFK thing is true, and I really hope that RFK not only does the right thing and endorses Trump, but I hope that Trump is open to giving him a cabinet level position. HHS would be perfect for him. I know you talked about the CIA, but if he truly believes in going against big pharma and that the vaccine schedule is way too big for children and is causing damage, then he should do the right thing. He is a one-issue candidate, and that's his issue, right? I don't care what these people in the chat say. RFK Jr. has no other issues that you can name, and definitely nothing that a Republican would agree with, right? So this is his chance. Most Democrats hate him, and most Republicans know that he's not, right of center. So this is his chance. Do the right thing, RFK. I'll be here to onboard you when you're ready, and your crazy people that follow you.
Yes, you are the Trump RFK onboarding team lead, so that's why we're glad you're here. As far as my final thought, we're heading out of the silly season. We're getting past the conventions now. Summer's almost over, and it's time to get down to brass tacks. And it's time to get down to what your issues are and which candidate is going to be best for your issues. And that's who you should really vote for. I'm tired of dealing with party labels. I'm conservative myself, but I'm willing to listen to just about anyone except Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for obvious reasons. I've done my research on them already. That's why I'm going to encourage you guys to do your own research as well. Don't just listen to me and Ross, although we're pretty good at what we do. I dare say we're damn good at what we do, but fact check everything you hear yourself. Be curious, be naturally curious about what's going on out there. And don't fall for the bread and circuses of the DNC that you're seeing this week. I'm sure you didn't for the RNC. That's why you found this channel. And finally, as always, shouting out all of our friends that come and support the channel week after week that are here. I'm so glad that you guys are here. It's a lot of fun doing this again, and we're glad to keep on keeping on during this crazy season that we're dealing with for election 2024. The most important election since the last most important election. But that's going to be it for us. We're shutting things down, and as always, we end the show with a little bit of fun because, well, it's my fucking channel and I want to. So good night, everybody. Let's play our motherfucking anthem. Good night, folks.
Democrat